Good evening. I'm Mark Gardner and I'm privileged to be the Chief Executive of CST, Community Security Trust. CST's job is to keep you safe so that you and your families can lead the Jewish lives of your choice. I'll explain what we've done since October the 7th and what lies ahead. Now, when the war began, I spoke on various communal briefings, just like this one. I was asked to give reassurance, but I explained I couldn't, because reassurance sounds like a guarantee that nothing will happen, which we all know it can. But I did assure you, I promised you, that CST would do everything we could to protect you, and that is exactly what we've done. I said that our fully trained security volunteers and our physical security infrastructure, built at all the schools, all the shuls, was already in place for exactly this reason, because we know the reality of anti-Semitism and of terrorism, including Hamas and Hezbollah. We urged you to find the strength to continue sending your children to school, which you did and have done ever since. Remember some of the fear-mongering that spread on social media? We asked you not to do our enemies' work for them, and very quickly you learned that lesson and stopped spreading those false rumors. Above all, we said that we would be strong for you, and we asked you to be strong for us in return, and you have been. And for all the fear of the first month or so, there's now an absolute determination to stand and be counted. Our community saw the need to stand up for itself, and that's exactly what it's now done. CST has been so proud to play our part in enabling that, including by protecting unprecedented demonstrations of communal determination. In London, we had tens of thousands of people in Trafalgar Square calling for the release of the hostages. And then even more joined the campaign march against anti-Semitism that finished in front of Parliament. Manchester, Leeds, other communities have also demonstrated, also protected by CST. Hundreds upon hundreds of Jewish men and women have joined CST in recent months as volunteer security officers. Every person was individually vetted and went through intensive training courses, security procedures, physical self-defense, emergency trauma, first aid. CST now has over 2,000 volunteers. We have empowered our community, and you empowered us. That's why there isn't any difference between CST and our community. We are all one and the same. Now, CST's staff back up these volunteers from offices in London, Manchester and Leeds. We've had to take on 20 new staff. Our budget is up by over £2 million. It includes more equipment for more volunteers, more donations for community buildings, for better security doors, fencing, etc. and CCTVs feeding into our 24/7 National Control Centre. Now, I promised you that CST would continue speaking responsibly and with authority on our subjects of anti-Semitism, terrorism, policing. We cut through the noise with sober facts and analyses. Anti-Semitic incidents are running at record levels. There has been some violence, but overwhelmingly this is verbal abuse and threatening behaviour. Since October 7th, CST's dealt with over 4,500 anti-Semitic incidents, either reported to us by yourselves or by police forces across the country. And we've taken well over 2,500 other reports that show suspicious behaviour or criminality, but not anti-Semitism. So it's over 7,000 reports since October the 7th. And you know, the worst of it was in the first week of the war, which proves yet again that anti-Semitism is not a response to what Israel does or is alleged to do. Instead, anti-Semites use the Middle East as an excuse to act out their Jew hatred. But it's Jewish death and vulnerability that excites them the most. Now, throughout this war, colleagues and I have had a constant stream of meetings with police and government at every level. It's impossible for me to adequately explain just how much consultation and cooperation there is constantly between CST, police, government ministers and relevant government departments. And I know that our community feels that police should do more, and I share some of that, but they do a lot of things very well, which by definition you then don't see. There are terrorism cases right now that came from the police or from CST reported to the police. For months, police were stationed in our 24/7 control centre, but now it's mainly over Shabbat. The policing on anti-Israel demonstrations is much better now than it was in October and November. People are being arrested for things that previously would never have occurred. In previous wars, demonstrations had widespread violence and support for terrorism by Hamas and Hezbollah. None of that now happens. Our relationship with government saw their annual community security grant raised by a further £3 million to £18 million. It's now in place for the next 3 years, and Keir Starmer is also committed to it. That money is managed by CST for the Home Office. It goes to every school, schools and many other communal locations to pay not for CST, but for guards from commercial security companies. None of it could be done without CST being across all of our communities. And whatever happens next with the war in Gaza or maybe Lebanon, we know the impact here in Britain. More anti-Semitism, more threats of terrorism, and a deepening sense of Jews being squeezed out of the public space, whether it's children in playgrounds or public transport, young adults on university campuses, or Jewish men and women in their places of work and leisure. CST's job is to understand and fight these physical, political, and social realities. Our volunteers, staff, and trustees choose to be your front line, led by our chair, Sir Gerald Ronson. CST will always be defined by our name, community, and security, and trust. Those are values that drive everything we do. The community is what we serve. Every single British Jew and everything that you make happen, all of it constituting our community. As I've said, CST is not somehow separate to our community. What happens to you happens to us. Community gives CST our people, our resources, our legitimacy and purpose. Security is what we do. The physical security, the research expertise, and the political and intellectual defence of our community. Trust, fundamental. The trust that our community, the police and the government have in us to carry out this mission. That trust, every time we protect our community, every time we help someone because they or their child suffered a racist attack, every time we will do all that we can to deserve your trust. That is my commitment to all of you, and it is CST's pledge in the continuing service of our community. From day one of this war, our ethos and our message to you has been, be Jewish. We have every right to be Jews and to lead our way of life. We will keep working with all of you to achieve that goal. But it's Jewish students who are at the sharpest end of things. So I'm proud to now hand over to Sammy and Ed. Thank you.